There was other confusion. Only minutes after that message, at 11:07 p.m., the Coast Guard emailed the Bounty with an urgent appeal for clarification on the ship's situation. USCG, request you send email reply. USCG received report from owner that vessel Bounty is not in distress. Reply as soon as possible with an update of your situation. The updates from the ship were watched closely at Elizabeth City, but the news that an HC-130J was going up from Raleigh was considered especially significant, because it meant two things. One, the Bounty's situation was serious enough to warrant sending out a communications platform in this mess of a storm, and two, the Coast Guard leaders thought the rescue craft and crews could handle it. Lieutenant Jane Pena was one of those crew members. As a Jayhawk helicopter co-pilot, she could be called upon if the Bounty's situation worsened. At 31 years old, Pena was, like Myers, one of the pilots with the least experience at the air station. She had received a degree in history with a minor in German language and literature before marrying her husband, a prior Marine who entered the Coast Guard 2 months after their wedding. Pena spent 2 years as a Coast Guard spouse before joining, partly because she had always wanted to fly. Pena's crew had come on duty at 7:45 a.m. that Sunday morning, 13 hours before the Bounty's trouble call was received. Now she and the rest of her team paid close attention as others discussed whether to send the Herc out, what they knew of the Bounty's situation, and options like dropping a portable water pump onto the struggling ship. While the decisions were being made, Pena and a couple of colleagues looked up the Bounty on the internet to see what kind of ship they were dealing with. She was shocked to realize that a tall sailing ship was out in this weather. With her history degree, she was familiar with the story of the original HMS Bounty and the mutiny, but she had not heard about this replica, and some of the first references she found online disparagingly described it as only a movie prop rather than a functional vessel. Her Jayhawk pilot, 43-year-old Lieutenant Commander Steve Cerveni, was also senior duty officer at the station that evening. He would be staying up late to get McIntosh's HC-130J out and then monitoring the situation, but he ordered his crew to get some rest. "You'd better go get some sleep, because we're probably going to get called out on this later," he told Pena. She and the rest of her crew went to bed in the on-duty quarters adjacent to the Jayhawk hangar, trying to maximize their readiness for whatever time they might be called to fly into a hurricane. Another crew watching the action was led by 39-year-old Lieutenant Commander Peyton Russell, a Herc pilot who had flown helicopters in the Army for 7 years before he was lured to the Coast Guard by his younger brother, who had gone to the Coast Guard Academy right after high school. Russell was stationed in Germany at the time, working in a hangar that had survived World War II and still had bullet holes from enemy strafing. When he took a break and visited his brother's Coast Guard station in Miami, Florida, Russell couldn't believe the difference. His kid brother was working in a gleaming modern airplane hangar so clean that Russell wouldn't have hesitated to eat off the floor. Like many others who transitioned from other armed services to the Coast Guard, he realized the Coast Guard offered certain lifestyle benefits that the Army couldn't, such as stability in assignments and no risk of being deployed overseas. For many in the Coast Guard, those benefits make it possible to have a normal family life. Russell also was impressed by the professionalism and skills of the Coast Guard aviators, so as soon as he was eligible, he applied for a transfer. He was at Disney World with his family when his brother called with the news that he was the Coast Guard's newest aviator. After spending a few years piloting Jayhawks in drug interdiction, Russell transitioned to the Herc. Similar to the experience of Myers, the first fixed-wing airplane Russell ever flew was the massive C-130. He skipped flying the little T-34s in Navy flight school, or working his way up from other small planes.